Hello, good morning and welcome to Sunrise. It is today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
good morning and welcome. I'm Kayla Megwa.
All right, so go ahead and have a look at Bauchi State. You know that different parts of the country experiencing different scenarios, but have a look at this lovely skyline. It's the GRA area in Bauchi State. So different scenery for you all to see today. You get to see, I think the government house is somewhere close there in the old GRA. So sometimes you wonder, well, yeah, developments came to the old ones first before the new GRA. But yeah, it's lovely scenery, which is what many are advocating, not to spoil or destroy public property. But yes, indeed, it's at 23 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. Similar narrative in Bauchi. Of course, it's going to increase much later in the day. But in the meantime, this is what it is.
And that's very instructive there, that this is the skyline we do not want ruined. I mean, the protests have taken a very interesting turn and it's brought up a lot of conversations that need answers, you know. So, I mean, the legitimate right to protest and then the hijacking by looters and just watching all of those disappointing sceneries across the country, well, especially in northern Nigeria, has been very disappointing. But this skyline in Bauchi, do not ruin this skyline. You would not... You would not want to be from... Don't ruin it by burning down places and making the place ugly. Please. I mean, there has to be some way, Chamberlain. I think that's the thing. Protest management in Nigeria. You know, everyone keeps talking about the legitimate protesters, the ones that are looting. But there has to be some standard mechanism to handle these situations.
Well, it can never be legitimate to loot.
It can't be. It can't be. So there has to be some way that security agencies are able to handle it. While people are allowed the right to protest, those who are looting, who are attempting to loot, should be arrested quickly, you know, before the damage is done.
Well, there's a 24-hour curfew in Bauchi State, which has been declared yesterday because of the unfortunate scenarios, vandalism, looting of public property in the state. And so those areas you see now may just be cordoned off. I mean, people are expected to be restricted so that at least all those frayed nerves will be tempered. All right, so there you go. We'll go ahead and come back to you in just a moment with some of the headlines, so stay on with us. Well, here are some of the papers we've got for you this morning. Vanguard newspaper, Kaduna Zaria boil, over 700 billion naira lost in 5 days, ascribed to Asbon and Kasima. Well, some of the riders here, Kasima, Asbon count losses as protests become violent in Kaduna Zaria. Continues in Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Jos, Benin. Rescue Nigerians now. Protesters with Russian flags beg Putin in Zamfara. Russia not party to flags flown during protest, ascribed to their embassy. Tinubu security chiefs meet. Police arrest 31 for distributing, producing Russian flags in Kano, Kaduna, Jigawa, others. And then they've got snapshots of the protests all over the front page here this morning. Leadership newspaper, criminals have hijacked hunger protests. Military warns. Declares waving foreign flags treasonable offense. Refutes coup rumors as Russia distances itself from protesters. Kaduna government imposes 24-hour curfew. And then this story above this lead story on the front page of Leadership, Air Nigeria court voids agreement with Ethiopian Airlines. You might also want to check that one out. Daily Trust, Tinubu orders crackdown on protesters waving Russian flags. Well, Daily Independent, hashtag end bad governance. Protesters have crossed the line. Ascribed to Defense Chief right there. Beneath that list story, Aviation Union petitioned Tinubu over grounding of Arik Air fleet. Say aircraft belong to secured creditors. Have a look at Blueprint this morning as protesters fly Russian flags. Military will resist treasonable push to change government. Ascribed to Musa. And then look at some of the riders. We don't interfere in domestic affairs of other nations. Ascribed to the Russian embassy. Kaduna imposes curfew as one killed, properties looted. That's a big lead right there this morning. The Nigerian News Direct, hashtag end bad governance. Flying Russian flag in Nigeria is treasonable. Defense chief to protesters. So that's pretty point blank right there. DSS arrests sponsors of Russian flag for protesters. Police arrested 873 rioters, not protesters, force PRO, as Russia denies involvement in hashtag end bad governance protest. Arewa Group urges Tinubu to relocate Kano's Digital Innovation Park to Kebbi. New Telegraph will defend democracy, says CDS, as Tinubu security chiefs meet over hardship protests. Then some of the riders here, those flying foreign flags will be arrested, prosecuted. Ascribed to CDS Musa. DSS police apprehend tailors making flags in Kano, others as Russian government distances itself from protest. And believe that story, Edo Ondo Guba, INEC removes 92,078 new registrants over irregular registration. So don't forget that. Arewa political group threatens to occupy INEC offices over LP leadership crisis. That you also see right there. The Guardian newspaper focuses on a different scenario entirely. FG prioritizes NAS State House spendings amid MDA's funding crisis. So they got a table here. Release funds in H1. You see that table there. And then widening gap between expenditure and revenue nears crisis level, leaving FG with a spending shortfall of over 50% in H1 2024. You'll also see on the front page right there. This Nigeria, as Tinubu meets security chiefs, it's treasonable to hoist foreign flags in Nigeria, Defense Chief warns. Says Army won't allow democracy to be truncated. DSS captures tailors sewing Russian flags in Kano as police arrest 873 suspects nationwide. Kaduna Bauchi imposes 24-hour curfew. There you go. And then Lagos to crack down on unsupervised building projects. You see there. But at the bottom street, EFCC grills 2 Kogi government officials. We have nothing to hide, says Commission. U.S. recession fears, falling crude prices threaten new minimum wage 2024 budget. Okay, so much to do about these flags here and there. Well, the Chief of Defense Staff did speak about all of those flags, but it turned out that there was some sort of controversy about which is what. Now, the flag, when the president stands to address the country, you see 2 flags there. So one is green and white. That this one here is the one that indicates he is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Now, if you then look when the president is addressing the country, you'll see that on the other side. So chances are that if you don't look properly, look at that. So you see that green way below there. So if the shot changes to what we call a medium close-up, you'd only see the red, the blue, and the white. And then some people will think, but wait a minute, the president has green, I mean, he has red,
it's not the same
blue,
thing.
and white. And so why is it?
It's not the same thing. This is the presidential standard.
So look at this angle, you can see that.
It's not the same thing. So what they've been waving are Russian flags, and we've heard some security experts talk about the dynamics in that part of the country that could be leading to this.
But there's also another flag which is online, which is said to be the Nigerian Armed Forces, but clearly that is not, because this right here is the flag. So when you see a different frame of that picture, you see that green completely off, and so you could think that, wait a minute, if this is the flag, are they themselves missing the point? Because the first thing you see when you try to Google online, well, maybe not the first, depending on how you go about it, is a different color. But that you've seen there, this, yes, is the flag indicating he is the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But the chief of defense staff also did speak to all of those waving Russian flags. Have a look.
2 hours meeting with Mr. President, we explained to him in details the current situation on ground since the riots have started. And what we realized is that, yes, initially people said it was a peaceful riot, but we have warned against it because we realized that there are individuals that are willing to take advantage of it to cause mayhem, and we can see clearly what has happened since it has commenced. Criminals have taken over, a lot of looting, a lot of stealing and all sorts happening. And besides that, we're also aware that I'm seeing, all of us have seen it, where some foreign flags have been flown within the sovereignty of Nigeria, and that is totally unacceptable. We are warning in clear terms, and the president has also said we should convey this, that we will not accept anybody, any individual flying any foreign flag in Nigeria. That is treasonable offense, and it will be viewed and treated as such. So nobody should allow himself to be used by any individual. Also, the issue of coups. Nigeria is a sovereign nation. Nigeria is a democratic nation. All security agencies are here to defend democracy and make sure that democracy continues to strive. We will not accept anyone pushing or taking any action, seemingly or for whatever reason, to want to push for any change of government. Democracy is what we stand for. Democracy is what we continue to defend. The military is going to step in when it is out of bounds. And we can see that for people, subversive elements to push individuals to carry Russian flags in Nigeria, Nigerian sovereignty, that is crossing the red line, and we will not accept that. And those ones who have done that will go in for the books, and they're going to be prosecuted.
All right, so in part of the north yesterday, we did see looting, vandalism of private and public property, as a matter of fact. And so that's why you see some states, Bauchi joining them, Katsina also imposing curfew, 24-hour curfew in some of those states. Don't forget, Kano did a similar thing as well. Yobe, even though there were 3 local government areas, but there was still curfew at the time. Bauchi, Katagum local government area, several other local governments not affected, but then the governor also wanted to just stave off all of that. Plateau, equally of concern, which we'll speak to all of that as we progress. But there are also questions concerning the state governors. What exactly are they doing? So all of this and more, we've got 2 gentlemen joining us this morning to weigh in on this subject matter. Dr. Abubakar Abdullahi Kuso, he worked as an assistant to the DG of Tinubu Shetima Presidential Campaign Council. He's a member of the ABC. Dr. Kenneth Okonkwo, legal practitioner. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Good morning.
Well, some concern in the country. Yes, it was planned as a protest. Well, now sometimes we even wonder, can we actually say it was planned just as a protest? Because if you don't know the proper intent, you never can tell. Let me start with you. Up north, there are concerns about how this is degenerating. Private property being looted, innocent people being affected. What's going on from your perspective?
Sincerely speaking, before the protest started, we held a lot of press conference, stakeholder engagement, community engagement to talk to our people, because we know in the north, the moment something starts up, some criminal element will hijack it. And we know how Mr. President has been trying his best to see that he transformed Nigeria and to fulfill his renewal agenda. You see, in the whole world, there have never been a peaceful protest. It started as a peaceful protest, but well, those...
That's highly debatable, but go ahead. We'll get the point.
There have never been a peaceful protest all over the world. No, it started as a peaceful protest, then the criminal elements behind coming to hijack it.
There's been several peaceful protests in different parts of the world.
Maybe
what you're saying is that, well, chances are that when people protest, you always have a few elements who will either obstruct traffic, but to the extent of looting and vandalizing property, not always the case across the world.
And that's why we said no to protest at the initial stage. You have a genuine agitations that you want to end bad governance. It is the right of all Nigerians to protest and to tell the president what they want. But I felt it would be unfair to the president since he came on board that he has not been trying his best to deliver on the mandate given to him by Nigerians. Protests have never been the best way to address issues in Nigeria. We can see how the NSAS protest started. People entered it, a lot of criminals start shooting and start killing. So we felt protests can never, and it has been never. Look at today. When we say our fears have been in play now, when we say no to protest, we knew what will eventually follow.
Have you heard what people say about the president's speech? How some thought that it appeared surprising, shocking to people. They thought it was out of touch, that he didn't address the main concerns that the protesters wanted him to address.
The main concern of the protesters is for Mr. President to bring back subsidy, because they felt there is hunger in the country. As in subsidy has not been helpful. We knew subsidy is essential and very necessary, because by subsidizing a lot of things, you see an ordinary man can get. But look at it today. Petroleum is sold as high as 1,000 Naira today. So there is inflation in food prices. There is inflation in...
What do you mean 1,000 Naira? Which...
The inflation that you sell at black market, you see 1,000 Naira. The only place you see them selling fuel is the NNPC and government control price filling stations. Is that the problem of the Mr. President? The marketers are to be blamed as well.
All right, Dr. Konko, I mean, you know, there are several dynamics to this. Yes, the protests rang out. Then the president addressed the country. And then more reaction concerning, wait a minute, this is not all we're talking about here. Would you rather speak or not? But if it's this way, they thought big question marks. What do you think of all of this?
Well, I want to first of all thank my colleague here. He is actually doing the job for me. I would have loved to listen to him. First of all, Sheikh Husani at the presidential villa told President Tinubu, you are the father of protests. If going by his submission that there has never been any peaceful protest, he is actually saying that President Tinubu has never been any peaceful man. By his own submission, not mine. Although I respectfully disagree with him, because I know that they unleashed the greatest protests against this country. And in all conscience, I would not say that they were extremely violent. When they protested against Goodluck Jonathan because of a 20 Naira increase in fuel, today they said purportedly that they have removed fuel subsidy that landed the price of fuel from 195 Naira to, according to him again, 1,000 Naira.
In black markets?
No, even in real market. In Lagos, 1,200 Naira. And the funny thing is that it's not even available. People have to spend hours in the filling station to pay 900 Naira, and it's not even available. What a government. Now, the people are protesting for hunger and hardship, for deprivation, for degradation. And the president was compelled to speak. I wish they did not compel him. Because if I were a media aide, I would have preferred there was no speech at all. Because a bad speech is worse than no speech at all.
What was wrong with that speech for you?
First and foremost, it was contradictory, it was inflammatory, it was annoying, it was disheartening. I'll give you an example. Paragraph 2 of that speech. He was recognizing that it is the children that are desiring for a better nation that are protesting. In paragraph 5, he's already saying that it is by some politicians that have clear political agenda. What a contradiction. In paragraph 6, the president said, in his own words, for people who want to take undue advantage of this situation to threaten a section of the country, be warned. The law will catch up with you. There is no place for ethnic bigotry in a Nigeria we seek to build. This same president is harboring as a media aide a man who, after 2023, said Igbos are aliens in Yoruba land. He said Igbos should never interfere with the police of Lagos State. That 2023 should be the last time that the Igbos should interfere in the police of Lagos State. And in 2027, it should not repeat itself again. It was on his Twitter space, and I'm talking about Bayo Onanuga. If the president is sincere in what he said in paragraph 6 of his speech, the first thing he would have done is to sack Bayo Onanuga. And you know, in addition to the speech being empty and very annoying, it was even leaked before the day. And people were making caricature of the president when he was talking. They were reading with him and even reading ahead of his own speech. And he has such level of incompetence in the media aid, and he did not take them out. And give another example. For now, we have 48 ministers going to 49. These children, what are they asking for? They are simply saying, sir, this fuel subsidy removal, this depreciation of Naira, this electricity tariff, they are unsustainable, and I agree with them.
So is it to say that the fact that he even spoke and decided to at least try and address the concerns of Nigerians counts for nothing because you think that the speech is not good enough?
No. It is because, I'm sorry to say this, because I don't have better way to express it. I don't even know whether he understands or he understood what he said. Because he said this is the broadcast by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces on nationwide protest. Then what is it about the nationwide protest that he addressed? He was telling us he gave 570 billion naira to governors. And the first time he started dishing out these billions to governors was when they had cases in tribunal. And you knew what happened to those billions.
But Dr. Kuso, I mean, I'm sure that is not the first time you'll be hearing reactions to the president's speech. So within the party, is it that they're all on the same page saying, look, irrespective of what people think, the party still thinks, or you, for instance, now, since you're here with us, that the speech for you is still good enough?
To me, the speech is good enough. Because if you look at the majority of those agitating for end bad governance are youths. So you have to address them to tell them his plans for them and what he has done to them so far. Majority of the youths used in this protest are uninformed youths. Why do I say they are uninformed? Mr. President have given enough funds to the state government, to the state governors. It is expected that the governors will also empower the local government chairman. That's why you have 3 tiers of government. The grassroots are the ones feeling the hits of this hardship, you are saying.
But now that we have that Supreme Court decision about the local governments, they're not supposed to interfere with the local governments. So that's...
Has it been implemented yet?
Mr. Kuso,
They've given time...
you've used a phrase here today.
Yeah.
You said you that were used. What do you mean by that?
They were the ones protesting. You say underage youths.
Yes, used by who?
But used by the people that organize the protest. This is a faceless protest leaders. We don't know who are the leaders.
Did you see we understand the looting and we saw a lot of hoodlums and things like that happening. But did you see regular Nigerians protesting as well?
Most of these people you see, they are using they are not Nigerians.
Listen, you can't say
most
that.
Most of them are not Nigerians.
Listen, did you see in any way from day one, did you see actual Nigerians protesting?
Most of ours, they are youths. And most of them, as I said, they are not Nigerians. A good loving and rightful Nigerian will not destroy the nation.
We said, you know, that's the trick I keep hearing a lot of people make. You try to lump actual protesters with looters. That's not the case, is it?
The first day you saw.
Are there people who are genuine protesters and then they are looters? Can you acknowledge that at least?
Initially, we thought they were genuine protesters. But we knew the outcome would be the criminal elements will take over, and that's what's happening.
So
look at how they are looting.
Doesn't that also speak? We've seen all of that.
You can't imagine in Kano State, the NCC hub built for the youths to train them to have fun has been destroyed. Which of the good, loving citizens will destroy things like that?
Some people who
you can see someone sitting on top of a traffic light breaking it for what?
Some people who criticize this train of thought that you're going with state categorically, and I want you to answer this, that the idea that a protest can be hijacked doesn't mean that people should not protest. It sounds lazy on the part of government if they keep saying, because looters can come and hijack a protest, people shouldn't come out to protest. Do you think that maybe some evolving has to happen in the way protests are managed in Nigeria so that people can exercise their right to protest, and then the looters and hoodlums will not be allowed to hijack it? Do you think this is something government can do?
It's going to happen. And that's why I'm saying when they have leaders, the leaders should come up. If you listen to Mr. President's speech, he says he's open to dialogue. So I feel the best way to get this done is through dialogue. The leaders will have seek for Mr. President's attention to sit down with him and tell him, okay, this is what we want. If you want cutting governance, okay, address bring out your agitations, sit down with Mr. President and address better and protest, because we need the aftermath of the protest. And that is what's happening today. Look at Kaduna yesterday, protesters turning on holding Russian flags. What does that have to do with end bad governance protest?
You said they are not Nigerians. Who are they?
They are boys from the neighboring countries. They are coming in. Look at it in Nigeria. In Nigeria, people at the age of between 18 to 30 are the majority. You get? And we have a system, which I must say this clearly. Our immigration system is very flawed. Our own borders are very porous that anybody can come in. So the amount of people we have in the country is, most of them are foreigners coming in from Niger, from Chad, just to have a livelihood. It is the duty of immigration to have the real numbers and data of those foreigners. So if you look at them, most of them are not Nigerians from their behaviors.
I want to be able to get Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo to speak on this, because it does seem like there's a gap in understanding as to what has happened and what should have happened. One of the things that many people complained about with the president's speech was that he didn't talk about the cost of governance at all throughout the speech. If you had his ear, what would you have asked him? Because that cost of governance goes to some of the short-term demands of all Nigerians. If you had his ear, what would you have told him to say about the cost of governance in that speech?
If I had his ear, I'll first of all tell Mr. President that he should recognize that the power of the people is superior to the people in power, and that he should show respect to Nigerians. I would have told him, what case do you think you will make for hunger and hardship when you have 48 ministers? Bogus, when you could have had only 37, according to the Constitution. I would tell Mr. President, why would you have to spend 21 billion naira on the house of your vice president? Mr. President, why give billions to your wife when she has even said in front of a church that we don't need it because we're already blessed with money? Mr. President, why give 6 billion naira to National Assembly to build car park when you are giving loan to students? Why don't you give grants to the students? Mr. President, you have the greatest number of out-of-school children in the north. They are going to be a problem to you. I am really surprised that my colleague here is talking about the porous border for a president that has the largest bureaucracy, who could not even police our border. You see, his statement is as contradictory and as confusing as the speech of the president, because I'm sitting here trying to make out the meaning of what he's saying, and at the end of the day, I will get thoroughly confused. So the issue here is, if I'm with the president, I would say, cut down. When they removed fuel subsidy, the first day they did it, I came out and shouted, no. Be very careful in coming out of this subsidy. And the reason is because it will be unsustainable. There are certain things you ought to have done before contemplating removing subsidy. How can you be talking about palliative? Let me tell you the truth. Any subsidy you remove and you talk about palliative is a very wrong decision. Because subsidy in itself is a palliative that is actually treating the condition. Palliative of sharing money is relieving the symptoms without dealing with the condition. But palliative as subsidy, as low electricity tariff, they are treating the condition. So I would tell this, Mr. President, you ought not to remove this subsidy if you intend to share money to your ministers and to everybody. Restore this subsidy so that you will make sure that supply is there. Use all this money you're borrowing. Fix the refineries. They borrowed almost $18 billion in a year. Where will that kind of a thing sustain your economy? Depreciated Naira by 300%. Let me tell you, they are saying 70,000 minimum wage. 70,000 minimum wage at the cost of 1,600 Naira is $44. 30,000 minimum wage, which he met at the price of 500 Naira to $1, is $60. Which one is more? So this government has depreciated the standard of living of people, and what he should do is to ensure productivity, give incentives to productivity. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has ably stated the problem they are going through. Frequent policy flip-flop, high interest rates, hyperinflation, astronomical energy costs, toxic environment to operate, multiple charges. You don't have these things and you want productivity? No, that is hypocrisy.
Mr. Kuso, do you think that the cost of governance, you belong to this party, is the cost of governance astronomically high in your view?
It is high.
Okay.
I want to be sincere, it is high. Because as you said, the number of ministers is something
May Allah
to
bless
level.
you.
No, it's not all about politics always. There are sometimes we need to face the reality. And my take on this is the president we know is trying his best to cut down the cost of governance. He's somebody that listens very well, but at this point in time, he has time to think about cutting down governance, and he have time to think about the protest.
In what ways do you think he should cut down governance right now?
The best way to cut down governance is, as he earlier said, cut down the numbers of ministers at this point in time. Once you cut down the number of ministers, you get to where you are going to. That is a cut of governance. So also you can see, he said there shouldn't be any foreign trip for any government official for now. It's also the cutting down of cost of governance. So what I want from the people is, it's not easy to build a structure. You know, removing subsidy comes with a lot of norms. In Nigeria today, we've been enjoying subsidy for a very long time. But before he came on board, you can see there were a lot of agitations that Mr. President, as in subsidy have to go. We've been living a fake life and we have to come back to reality. So if the government is complaining of the amount of money it's paying to few individuals at the interest of 400 and something million Nigerians, so we felt taking off subsidy is the best thing to do. But the time he cut off subsidy, he said it before campaign, that subsidy have to go. So that means Mr. President have been so realistic in his before even he emerges that subsidy has been a cause than a blessing to Nigeria.
So you do admit that there is hardship in the country?
There is hardship. It's biting everywhere.
Okay. So is it possible that your earlier position, where you said the protest was a plan to do a change of government, is it possible that you may have been a little wrong there?
I'm not wrong. What I said is there are better ways of dialoguing than protest. Protest, when you know the beginning of a protest, you don't know the end of the protest. And our fear in the initial protest that we were against protest is what is happening now. Criminal elements will take advantage of this and loot. What does government facility have to do with the hardship? You go to government facility, you vandalize it, you remove the socket, you remove the roof. What does it have to do with the hardship?
Mr. Konko, what do you think about the concerns that the security agencies have consistently expressed about this protest?
The president said he's prepared to protect the fundamental rights of Nigerians. And he accepted that protest is one of them. Rather than marshalling out the security forces to protect the protesters, they are sponsoring protest against protesters. What an irony. You said you don't want protest, and your own protest commenced before the protesters' own. And you don't want protest. You see, somebody that has gotten so used to protest that is the father of protest will even protest against protesters.
No, he said that he protested, but he was not violent. It was a peaceful protest.
You can
and so they frown at violent protest and looting of private property.
First of all, I want to disagree respectfully with my colleague that the people that are sponsoring this protest are more false. I know of a senior colleague, Ebun Olu Adegboro Wasan. He wrote a letter to the president owning up to, I am the lawyer to these people, take it back movement. It's not about force. The senior advocate of Nigeria.
No, he's not a protester.
I know of
he's a lawyer.
Good. I'm coming. I know of one young chap, brilliant, Damilere Adenola. He's the director of mobilization of the Take It Back movement. He has been interviewed. As a matter of fact, when Adeboru was said stop, he said, sorry, I don't know what he's talking about. I know of Femi Aborishade, who said he would never be a slave in his country, protesting. I know of a Showore who even went further to say revolution now, and he's standing by his word. I know of the children of Nigeria, whom the president has acknowledged that they are desiring a better and more progressive country. They are protesting. Protest is secured in our constitution. I know of a Wole Soyinka that has disagreed with this government on how they tackled protesters. These protesters warned, if you kill one of our own, we are going to change it. From end bad governance to Tinubu must go. You have to be sentimentally attached to the energy exhibited by these children. You have to respect them. When I was in university, I protested from first year to this final year, and I paid the price for it. I graduated by November of 1989 rather than June. And we went for the second batch of NYSC. I recall on one occasion, we did not eat in the morning, especially when I entered university first, following them. Didn't know the strategies. I nearly died, on the road. During June 12th, a lot of people didn't know that. I was on the Kwemu Bridge.
Did you vandalize any property?
No, I did not, because I had enough. Vandalism is a criminal offense. Once you get to that level, you've crossed the mark. And the full wrath of law should be dealt with you. Because you are a thief, you are not a protester. Protest, like I always say, is the antithesis to the thesis that brings synthesis. Protest is necessary in a democracy to ensure that the leaders are put on their toes. And you must make sure that you are seeking for a change that is definable.
He suggests that there should be questions for governors as well. You subscribe to that?
When a man who is a president knows that there are questions about governor, why give them the money?
The law requires they do that.
No, the law is talking about allocation. It is the duty of the House of Assembly. But all those subsidies that is given to the governors, why?
What could have been done with it?
When you give governors, they are partisan. You don't expect a governor of PDP to remember LP, where I belong as a member. No, party, when they are sharing it.
But once you're
you don't expect the APC.
Once you're in that office as a governor, your party ceases.
I agree with you. You're talking about what it ought to be, not what it is. And that is why a leader should factor in what it is, not what it ought to be. So, if we were in that paradise, we would be talking about rigging election. If we were in that paradise, we would be where we are today, that a nation that is producing oil, the sixth largest producer of oil, is refining 100% of its oil outside Nigeria.
Well, we've gone past that now. We are now where the question is, where is the money?
No, the money has been blown, has been stolen. It is not me. It is Senator Ndume that said this government is government of kakistocrats and kleptocrats, meaning government by the worst set of us and compulsive thieves. So these thieves have stolen the money.
Dr. Kuso, in places like...
They should be jailed.
In places like Kaduna, Kano, Bauchi, you're from the north.
I'm from the north, yeah.
We know this dynamic. When you saw those hoodlums and looters, what came to your mind as someone who is from the north, who's a member of this ruling party. When you're looking at that number of young men, we call them looters and hoodlums, but they're Nigerians. Many of them are.
Majority of them are not.
Many of them are.
The majority of them are not.
But they are in this country.
Yeah.
They have a governor in the states where they reside. What came to your mind about what these governors have done to their states?
You see, we have three tiers of government: federal, state, and local. Mr. President, constitutionally, as part of what was saved from subsidy, gave it to the governors. Go and talk to your people. Go and develop your state. Most of this money that we are giving to them, if not when Minister of Information said it, nobody knew such amount of money went to them. They thought they never expect a protest, they will be hit with this kind of protest.
Some of them were actually published. The amount of money the governors were given.
But nobody knew until, most people don't know. That's why I say most of people are uninformed. Most people don't look at newspapers, okay, what is happening today? But the moment this protest was on, and the Minister of Information went to break it, I said 570 billion was given to the governor of Bomb. Everyone said, okay, where is the money? What have they done with it? Mr. President have done his own. And as my colleague said here as you said, it is a constitutional right that he must give them that money. What did they do with the money?
So if the question is, what have they done with the money? Now, the president, they are the ruling party.
Yeah.
You have a lot of members of the APC as governors. They don't have you don't have meetings among yourselves saying, listen, we've given you this money, go and tell the people what you've done with it. Can that happen?
If you look at it, yesterday, when the issue of how much the contract came up, the governor of Zamfara made a press conference that he collected 49 billion naira. He told his people. And if you go to Zamfara, you see where he's spending the money.
Has any APC governor said anything? He's in PDP.
Yeah.
So what's going on with the party APC? So wait. Does that mean that it is the APC governors who are frustrating this plan for the president?
How many governors have come to speak? It's not about APC or PDP.
No.
It's all about the governors. Look at Zulu. Anything that comes Zulu will say, okay, we're giving 20 truck of rice to share, and I've shared, everyone have seen it. So it's not about PDP or APC.
No, but
it's all about the mindset.
It's
all about the governing person.
If the question is coming from you,
yeah,
and I think we've heard the president also say the same thing, that the governors have got to fulfill certain things. So as a ruling party, shouldn't they lead by example?
You know,
and say, this is how much you have, this is what we're doing with it. Those kind of examples.
You see, Nigerians today shift all the blame to Mr. President because of what? He removed subsidy. Of course, they have taken off subsidy. But who are the major benefactors of the subsidy removal? The government, because the money went to them. So it's not all about APC, PDP. It's all about mindset. Go to my state, for instance. You can see the governor working.
What state?
Niger State.
Niger State.
If you go to, when he came on board, he brought all about New Niger. He has been working. Since he came on board, contractors have been on site. So you've seen that for yourself. I
want to give you a perspective. We're seeing a lot of, in places where we say the governor is working, they've built flyovers, bridges, roads. Human capital development is where the issue is for many people who are looking at the situation of this country, especially in northern Nigeria. What kind of human capital development have your governors in the north done, let's say in the past 1 year?
Most of them encourage people to go to farm. We are blessed with abundant farms. Go to farm. We can feed the nation. Go to KB State and go to the estate in the morning. You see small boys going to the farming. It's because they are getting the support from the government. But there are some youths that want to make quick money. All they after is, let's share the money. Bring the money, let's share it. So in the north, we are blessed with abundant lands to venture into agriculture. 5 states from the north can feed the nation. But are the youths willing to go to the farm? Or they also want to occupy political offices? And that is what they do to them. A governor will appoint 500 SAs, 600 SSAs, paying them a huge amount of salaries. Then the youth will start thinking, okay, me, I'm contented. If you start talking to the governor, you're not doing the right thing, they'll say, why are you blasting my principle? So I believe at this point in time, we need to go back to drawing board. Let's keep party differences. Let's come with ideas. Mr. President said
Can that
he's
actually
open
happen?
to dialogue.
Can your party actually say, let's keep party differences?
We know what Bola Tinubu is.
Mr. Gogo, what do you think about way forward and what to do?
You know, the president made that speech and he did not say anything about security. It is not fertilizer or lack of it that is preventing food from coming out from the north. It is security. Because we have been feeding ourselves with our fertilizer. We have more than 923,000 square kilometers of arable land. He did not tell you that in Niger State, in some local governments, people pay taxes now and levies to terrorists. Maybe he did not say that. If it is fertilizer,
I'm disagreeing with him.
Good.
In the whole of 25 local governments, we have only 2 local governments that were under the control of bandits before this government administration came up. And when the governor came up, the governor tried his best. Go to Niger today. People have gone back to their homes. The issue of insecurity is improved.
Yes, I will forgive him for interrupting. But what I'm saying is that 5 states in northern Nigeria can feed Africa. Ukraine is fighting a superpower nation, yet it has surplus to share grains to African countries, including Nigeria. Unfortunately, what the government should do, security and welfare of the people, they are the primary responsibility of government. Saying that it is foreigners that are protesting is actually indicting yourself. Why don't you go and pick the foreigners and deport them? What evidence does he have? You have immigration people that take salaries every day, and you're saying it's foreigners. And let me address the issue of the purported flag of the Russian nation. Section 36, subsection 12 of the Constitution. Nothing is a crime except it is on a written law. I'm surprised that people are saying that people carrying flag of another nation, that it is treasonable felony. Oh, come on. Let them learn protest. Those days when we were in school, if you bomb any African country, we were carrying the African country's flag in solidarity. Now that you have Israel and Gaza fighting, you see some countries, when they are pro-Israel, they carry the flag. When they are pro, they carry the flag. It is when you're carrying the flag of a nation you want to tear apart, the flag of that part that you want to create, which is not in existence, which will lead to the dismemberment of a nation. That's when you begin to talk about this double felony. That some young people who do not even understand what they are carrying, they are going around. We not go agree, we not go agree. Young people who may not even have gone to school, you're saying treasonable felony.
No,
just because you want to push it.
Some of them.
I am not encouraging it. I'm saying that should not be a reason to shoot these innocent children.
Yeah, but it wasn't just mere carrying of those flags.
Yes.
There were chants and what they were calling for.
Yes.
Which the CDS also addressed, saying, look, you can't call for coup. You can't invite other countries to come and do something here.
Just so we can get that, because we had a security expert who came and explained that you see in the coups that have happened in the countries around the north, for many people, they believe that those coups were sponsored by Russia, and that is where the call is coming from. So in his mind, it is treasonable to be asking for an unconstitutional change of governance to mirror what they perceive happened in countries around the north.
Good. Now, these are 2 different things. When you're calling for a coup, it's a different thing that you're carrying a flag of another nation. So when you're calling for a coup, that actually you've crossed the red line.
Because maybe the combined action of hoisting that flag, and then in the same breath also asking that we want a coup.
Now, you would have to separate them.
Can you?
Very well. Like I said, you can carry a flag in solidarity, but when you combine it, you have crossed a red line.
But there's no solidarity. What's going on in Russia? Are we involved?
I am telling you that those people carrying that flag does not even know what it means. Why I actually
but you know, ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
What I'm saying is that you should not shoot those innocent children.
Of course,
because they are carrying that flag.
I don't think they were shot because of that.
When people start, preparing such ground, it's treasonable felony. It is to give a room and an excuse in case they are shot. That is just the truth. So what I'm trying to say, please don't give me that excuse and shoot these children who may not even know. I'm talking from the heart of a protester myself. Because certain things we will just be following. We not go agree, we not go agree. We don't even know the essence of it. Those people that are saying that, what capacity do they have to bring up a military coup?
But what we've seen, part of the concerns they've also raised is they've seen a lot of vandalism and looting in parts of the state up north. And that's why they're saying, listen, you can't hide as a protester and riot and vandalize people's private property who are facing the same economic challenges as yourself. That is pure criminality. So they think, look, very thin line, because when people come with that veil of a protester and then they carry that action, that's why states are declaring curfew in those states.
I had said it before, vandalism is pure criminality. That's stealing. It has no place in a protest whatsoever. You're protesting for the good thing to come. Why are you using the protest to do the bad thing? It has no basis whatsoever in protest. And again, where were the security operatives when people were vandalizing? You should, like, that's what I'm saying, instead of they are helping to protect the protesters, they are organizing their own protest against the protesters. Their own protest started before the protest of August 1.
Okay, let's wind down now.
You see, as my brother said here, he said vandalism is something else. And what leads to that vandalism? It is the protest. And that's why he said at this point in time, at this material time, there is no cause for protest. Come for dialogue.
No, but there are two things. There are two things. People have a right to protest.
It's a constitutional right.
But if anybody goes in the guise of protesting and you loot, you vandalize, you will be arrested because that's a criminal offense. So he says the authorities should be able to draw the line and not in the guise of trying to stop vandalism, say protest is illegal.
Shouldn't happen.
That's why I said, you know, most of the people that are protesting, as you said, they are people that doesn't know what they are even protesting for. Most of those small boys, they just came out to protest, to join numbers. They don't know why they are protesting.
Did they just come out or where they
were mobilized?
Is that's what usually happens?
That is what happens when you start protesting. People mobilize. So about numbers.
No, I'm not talking about protest. I'm talking about both politically and otherwise. Is that like a general scenario? Up north?
Politicians that lost election, politicians that worked for the government and not compensated, they can mobilize just to paint the government black.
Oh, so even within the party, they can.
Of course, there are people that feel aggrieved. They say, okay, let's show our grievances from behind. Then they mobilize against the government. There are people, as Fintri said yesterday, Governor Adamo said yesterday, that protesters are those that initiated this are those that are aggrieved. I can agree with him. There are ways you show your grievances. If I'm not being compensated, okay, let me use this opportunity of protest to hit the government. That's why we said, when protest starts, you don't differentiate from the genuine protester and the criminal protester.
But you should.
How do you do that?
The president protested
That's what security agencies are for. That's what it's for. Like Chamberlain said, and I need you to hear that clearly. You cannot, because of the fear of being hijacked, of a protest being hijacked, then say people cannot exercise their right to protest. You can't do that. The job of security is to think outside the box. Protest management. So that protest management is the conversation right now, because this was exactly what happened with EndSARS.
But we've seen what these people were doing. The protesters were throwing stones on them, but they realized they didn't retaliate because they felt it is their right to protest.
So quickly from both of you, before we go, in less than 30 seconds, what would you want to see happen moving forward?
I just want to advise restraining using the word to warn. When protests happened in Kenya, Ruto thought he was the big guy. And when he was overwhelmed, he sacked all his cabinet and went to church and started crying. When protests happened in Bangladesh, the Iron Lady, who was there for 20 years, neglected them and disrespected them. Today she's in exile. In Nigeria, this government should learn to respect its people. They should not allow protests to happen. Prevention is better than cure. Why ask for dialogue when you could have done it before the protest?
Quickly, before we go.
As Mr. President earlier said, he's open for dialogue. I advise the protesters to come up for dialogue.
All right, Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo and Dr. Abubakar Akuso, thank you both for coming on this morning. So Business Morning comes up next with John Mekwa.
Sunrise Dailies, just about 30 minutes before we head back there. Well, we'll begin with oil prices, where prices rebounded. Yesterday was really red, but it rebounded this morning by more than 1%, pairing previous session's losses on supply concerns amid escalating Middle East conflicts and stronger U.S. services sector. That saved the day a bit, you know, and a cut in production at Libya's Sarara oil field. Looking at the numbers this morning, it's like opposite of what we had yesterday about this time. 1.27% for Brent at $77.27 a barrel. Well, it's, I guess we should also know that this means less revenue for Nigeria, you know, since it's Brent, that's our mainstay in the country for revenue. WTI, on the other hand, is $74.08 after it dropped 1.56% today. And of course, those issues are still there. Oil supply was limited with mounting concerns over concerns that Iran, which is a key Middle East producer, may retaliate against Israel, and the assassination of a Hamas leader that happened last week in Tehran, an Israeli attack that killed a Hezbollah commander in Lebanon, potentially leading to a wider regional oil war. Oil was also supported overnight, a little bit of hope coming in the United States. The services sector activity in the United States, we saw it rebounded from a 4-year low in July, giving a bit of hope. We know that the fear of recession was a major driver of oil prices yesterday. So oil gains occurred a mild broader against equity trading. It was supported by that and occurred amid a broader rally in Asian equity markets. We've also seen a bit of recovery in the Asian stocks. Also yesterday was bloody red. Concerns of lower productivity at Libya's 210,000 barrel per day Sarara oil field also buoyed prices. Output at the field, which is one of the country's largest, has fallen about 20% because of ongoing protests in the country. Seems there's protest everywhere. We're going to term 2024 year of protest, I wonder. Now back here in Nigeria, good news. NNPC Limited has launched a new crude oil grade. It's called the Utapate crude oil blend, and that's been supplied into the international market. This blend is extracted from oil mining lease OML 13, located offshore Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria and operated by NNPC subsidiary NEPL. This new addition, similar to the Nembe crude oil grade launched last year, has low carbon footprints in line with the specifications required by major European buyers. Currently, Utapate crude oil production stands at 28,000 barrels a day, with plans to increase to 50,000 barrels per day, and the blend has a low sulfur content of, 0.06, about that. The first cargo is heading to Spain and marks a significant milestone for Nigeria's oil industry. And of course, that should be a bit of good news and perhaps a boost to Nigeria's revenue. We're talking about good news. It's a good one for Dangote because the GCR ratings has affirmed the national scale long scale term and short-term issuer ratings of AA+ and A1+ for that company. According to Dangote Industries Limited, we see that the GCR in its recent report also affirmed the national scale long-term issuing rating of AA+ NG accorded to each of Dangote's industries, and the funding PLC Series 1 of 10.5 billion naira tranche A, as well as 177.1 billion naira tranche B bonds. And well, a whole lot. We'll give you more details, obviously, of that, but we say congratulations to Dangote, you know, in the midst of all of the not so good story and hitting that the company or the group has had to witness in recent times. This affirmation of their rating gives them a bit of hope. Now we look at the Naira, and something interesting opening the week. NAFEX appreciated that. Let's look at the numbers right there. See, it's an appreciation for NAFEM as at yesterday, but we're still around 1,600. the close of trade on Monday. 1,607 naira 15 kobo at opening, and 1,617 naira 8 kobo gained 0.61%. And for NAFEX, that's a drop. But we now know to keep our eyes right here. That's where we get the real value for the naira. NAFEX yesterday, 1,612 naira 81 kobo after I dropped 0.78%. Well, let's delve in on this and a whole other burning issue, economic burning issue, with the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. Mr. Rwani, good morning, and thank you for your time. Well, I think the first thing would be help us to understand the Naira, and of course, connected to the protest, which is the hottest issue in the country at this time.
Good morning, Ini. Yes, the protest is expensive, and what we have done is to analyze the total cost impact of that. So the GDP of Nigeria is about it's about $581 million if the entire economy is shut down for 1 day. For 2 days, it's about almost $1.16 billion. So that is the cost if you shut down the economy, but the economy was not totally shut down. It was shut down partially. So if you take an average for 4 days running, and let us say it's only 50% of the economy affected, you will find that it comes to about almost $1.45 billion. So that is the cost impact. But the reality is that the economy was not totally shut down. But what is happening is that some activities were stymied, and some people were holding back others. But it's a very expensive exercise, both from a macroeconomic perspective, but also psychologically and sociologically. People are beginning to believe that, okay, can I go to work? I've not added the time of people staying in queues, and the fact that when one sector shuts down, it affects the other. So the interrelationship and the linkages between one sector and the other are very expensive. So the country needs further protests and further strikes, right? Just as much as it needs a bullet in the head. Nigeria cannot afford this. So the leadership has to understand that you can't allow this thing to foster. And the people have to understand that there are time lags between when policies are made and when impacts are felt. But the real connection between both sides is the fact that there's a credibility gap on the side of the governed, and there's a crisis of false expectations on the part of credibility gap on the part of the governing, and there's a false expectation on the part of the governed. So crisis of false expectation. Now, the meeting ground is communication. That is, the administration has to engage and enter into dialogue, not just dialogue for the sake of talking, but dialogue for the sake of meaningful conversation and genuine conversation, knowing very well that the people are the masters here, and the governing class, that is us, the leadership, have to listen to them and carry out what they require in a meaningful manner. That is the real issue right now.
All right, so we also saw the oil. We saw a huge crash, and we're seeing a rebound this morning. And then when we juxtapose that with the Utakpate crude oil blend that Nigeria has just recovered, does it give us a bit of an edge?
No, if you say that the price of oil, if you can look at it, the price of oil has dropped to $75 a barrel on the back of what happened in the Southeast Asian markets and the fear that the U.S. economy could go into a recession. I think that's part of it. But as far as we are concerned in Nigeria, we are having to deal with some factors, macroeconomic factors that will stabilize the economy, irrespective of whether there's a protest or not, or whether the protest lingers on. But we think that the protest there will be some accommodation and dialogue between the federal government of Nigeria and the people of Nigeria. That conversation, we expect that to continue. But in the meantime, certain things are happening. And I want to point out one. The retail Dutch auction system is commencing tomorrow. the Central Bank of Nigeria has not said that it's going to be weekly or bi-weekly or something, but that retail Dutch auction will commence tomorrow. That what it means is that if I go and if I bid for anything that is for my personal travel allowance or for school fees or for importation of goods, I will go to my bank, and my bank would put the bid and put my name on the list to the Central Bank of Nigeria, and my bank will also put an amount that Bismarck Rewane has bidded for foreign exchange for his travel allowance, and he wants it. He's agreed to pay 1,700. If the Central Bank has $20 million to sell, once it sells to the highest bidder until it gets to a point where it cuts off and say this is a stop rate for today. So the next time they will have an auction, the Nigerian retail auction that INI would bid and say she wants to travel for holidays, and she's now bidding at 1,500. But because Bismarck Rewane lost at 1,700, the chances that you would win the auction at 1,500 is low. Therefore, you will probably bid higher. So the initial reaction, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's going to make the Naira slightly weaker in the short run because everybody is bidding. But the point is that if I bring in my goods, if I'm importing rice, and I win my bid at 1,900 for $1, and you win your bid at 1,500 for $1, you will be able to sell your rice faster than I, and I will lose. I'll be stuck with very expensive inventory. So what happens is that I will then go back the next time and bid at a lower rate. So what does the Dutch auction do? It leads to efficient price discovery, and the Naira will begin to find its value. 1, 2, it clears the air as to whether the central bank is discriminating in its sale of foreign exchange to its favorites. So once that is clear, that 1, there's a price discovery. 2, that there's no favoritism, it's objective. You'll find that the true value of the Naira will emerge from that process. So for now, yesterday the Naira depreciated a little bit because people are not fully aware of the modalities of this new system. It is, by the way, it's not a new system. We had a retail Dutch auction before. We had a wholesale Dutch auction. So that will happen. But another factor that we must bear in mind is that every bank has to put Naira behind its bidding. So the question of having a carry trade in which you would borrow money from the central bank to buy foreign exchange for the central bank does not exist. You must fund your account. Your account must be in credit, and your customers will give you Naira to go and bid. And if later on they find out that the Naira you gave to them, you didn't use it for bidding and you used it for something else, then there will be a lot of furor. So 1, it's going to lead to tighter money supply, that is higher interest rates, but at the same time, it will lead to a more stable exchange rate in the short run. And you can see already that Dangote has brought down the price of diesel and brought down the price of kerosene. So we are beginning to see some form of reduced volatility in some of the essential commodities that are being traded at this time.
Anyway, so we also have to consider that time lag for policy implementation to have full effect. Do we have an idea of how long it might take for this to translate into the value of the Naira?
Well, the truth is that, like I said at the beginning of this session this morning, there's a lag between when you announce policies and when it has the desired impact. And also there'll be unintended consequences. I think that you've seen the Naira stabilize around the 1,500, 1,600 level. But at the same time, we must understand that that is not the demand-supply factor and the difference between the power rate and the market rate. So let me give you an example. If you want to travel tomorrow and you want to go and bid, you would send all your papers to your bank. Your bank will send it to the central bank. And at what rate are you going to get it? You are going to be getting it at the NAFEX rate, which is about 1602. If you go across the road to the Malam to buy, you'll get it at 1600 or 1580. So the chances that you are going to start bidding for buying travel allowance where you can go to the BDC and buy it at the retail level, the rates are the same. The incentive to arbitrage and to take advantage of markets, arbitrage is defined as taking advantage of the different prices in the same market. There's no incentive to arbitrage. There's no incentive to round trip, and therefore, I suspect that the total demand by retail customers in Nigeria will not be as high as we had. And to debunk this idea that there's a shortage of foreign exchange. There's a shortage of foreign exchange at the subsidized price. There's no shortage of foreign exchange at the market price. Therefore, we will know by tomorrow, at the end of tomorrow, okay, yes, maybe $500 million is bid, and the central bank gives, say, 300. The rate cuts off at about 1,700. Then the next day, the central bank comes again and says we are doing $300 million. You would see immediately that the people that have bought the dollars and the Naira has gone already will not have Naira to come back for the subsequent bid. And so gradually, you begin to see the Naira begin to appreciate, but it will take some time. I would suspect it will take a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks before you begin to find a stable, non-volatile Naira, depending on the price of oil, the oil revenues, and the fact that we are able to, there's transparency in the process. And I think there will be transparency in the process.
All right, we hope there'll be transparency, Mr. Rani. Thank you so much for sharing your views with us this morning, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's take a break now. When we come back, we're still staying on the issue that's putting protesters on the street. Top on the list is food. Talk about that after the break. Yeah, well, there are protesters still on the streets in different parts. We learned in Ojota where they've been camping. Well, I guess after yesterday, the protesters have decided to take a break. So reports from our correspondents out there is that, well, there are no protesters in Ojota. But that's not to say that that's what's happening in Abuja and some other parts of the country. Unfortunately, in some northern states, we've seen it take a twist and a turn that does not, majorly represent what the initial course was, unfortunately. But, we'll stay on the course, which is that the people are asking for, well, a succor when it comes to the cost of living in the country. And top on the list, we know in Nigeria is food, with inflation at over about 41% at this time, driving headline inflation at this time. Let's see, perhaps there's a missing link, as we saw in that promo, asking what is the missing link to food sufficiency in Nigeria in the midst of abundance? How come food is still not abundant? Let's speak to Dr. Tope Daramola. He's the managing consultant, Delhi Barton Associates of Nigeria. He's a former chairman of Shonga Foods Holdings in Kwara State. Dr. Daramola, good morning and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Shani. Thanks for having me.
I wonder if Kwara would be a savior to Nigeria this time when it comes to food. We know that we had the farmers there, the former administration in that state, that were very focused on farming, agriculture. And then, of course, when you were heading Shonga Foods, that's supposed to be a major hub for food. But what are we missing? What do you see us missing in the country as a whole when it comes to food sufficiency, in spite of the good weather, the good soil, and and all?
Thank you very much. For those of us who have been actors in this sector, we are not surprised at what is happening. I've always thought, I would be surprised if anybody is surprised that we're in crisis that we are now, but because it's been on and all the signs are out there. I'm surprised people are not picking it up. For example, we know that there's complete disconnection from what we call policies that we have in Nigeria in farming and actual way these policies have been implemented. There's a wide gap between what we thought of and what is on the ground. So for Nigeria, for example, in the last 10 years, the problem that we're having now has been building up. Is it the insecurity that we are talking about that has chased away people from the farm? Without security, nobody can go to farm. Okay, so if you have farms and you can't access those farms, if you have factories, you can't go in there for food processing. So how do we have foods on the table? Now, the other thing that has been that led to these broken policies is because if you see gradually, they have been shifting and shifting of key resources away from this critical sector, which is farming, up to other sectors of the economy. The manpower are living, youth are living the farms. Quite a lot of people are not doing what they're supposed to do. They are not secured. The sector is not giving hope to people, and it's not rewarding operators and participants. So why do you want to be there? We all know how the basic economics show us how the economics works. Once a sector can offer reward that is commensurate to the labor and input that you are putting there, you stay in there. But for the case of farming in Nigeria, it has not been so. I remember when the Shonga farms took off in 2004 under the administration of Dr. Class Rakide. The same problem we were having then, unfortunately, 20 years after, is the same problem we're still having. Okay, so we have problem of lack of infrastructure. For example, we have land. We don't have good access to that land. There's no irrigation. For example, we do rain-fed farming. Who does that in this age and time? Okay, for what window do we have rain in Nigeria? For us in Savannah area, maybe maximum period of 4 months. How do you grow what the whole country want to eat within a period of 4 months? So we need to completely shift ground from where we've been and what we have been doing as a country and begin to migrate to area where we can begin to have processes and policies that support things that can enhance farming and farming production. I tell people food security is national security, as we have just seen. So serious attention must be given to food security, because without food, if people can't eat, they can do nothing. If you have not eaten, you can't be at work, you can't be safe. So the first line after safety is food security. And so we need to give it the appropriate priority.
So when you say we should shift grounds, Dr. Daramola, I wonder what you mean in practical terms. Now, we've seen duty-free import for 150 days. We've seen palliatives. We've seen the National Reserve being depleted. How many bags of rice? About 20, I think, trucks of rice, beg your pardon, that the federal government ordered to be given to each state. Are these the kind of grounds you think we should be adopting? If not, what should we be doing?
Yeah, I felt all these interventions that we are doing now, these are all panic switch. It's a panic. Now, these are consequences of improper planning that were done before. We're paying the price now. And if we don't put our ass together now, we're still going to pay the price tomorrow. So what do I actually expect people to do, or for us to begin to do in the interim, almost immediately? Yes, the palliative that government is given, sharing rice up and down there, it's okay, I don't have a problem with that. But I also believe that we need to go back to the basic and begin to fix all the broken infrastructures that support farming. For example, in those days, we used to have the River Basin Authority that is deployed to provide irrigation, provide water to farmers. We have a lot of intervention in terms of database and extension, agri workers and etc. They all collapse. I can tell you, all those things are broken. All our days when we're in Chonga Farm, absolutely we found nothing. For example, 20 years ago, when we're going to take up with that farming, we want to know the base data that is available about agriculture in Nigeria. There's nothing to show. There's no land mapping. There's no, definition of soil test and classification of what kind of soil do we have in which state and what agriculture it can support and what kind of fertilizer should we be looking for. All those things are basic elementary level stuff that we need to have fixed by now. We have not done that. We're paying for it now. We have to go back to go and fix those things. And in fixing it, we need to be sure that the things that we are doing are proper. We need to be sure that it's focused and then they are monitored. Because one of the major problems that I'm seeing in this sector again is because there's no way to measure efficiency and productivity in government business. And so people just do.
Looks like the network of Dr. Daramola fluctuating right there, and we seem to have lost him. And he was about to complete his thoughts right there. But he did talk about the issue of soil test research, mostly. Dr. Darmal, are you back? All right, soil test.
Come again, I can't hear you.
Okay, all right, we lost you for a bit.
Yeah.
We have less than a minute. Could you just conclude your thoughts, please?
Okay, so my take for Nigeria as a country that we all belong to is for us to go back, immediately have, find a way to bring the manpower and the resources that is required for us to fix the agricultural sector. We need to fix the insecurity that is in the land. We need to bring, the manpower that is being in the farm together. We need to bring in there. The land that the Mr. President said they are clearing, that's a good direction. But we need to know what do we do with that, and then what do we need to do to get the proper outcome. And then I had expected by now that the Minister for Agriculture should come out and tell Nigerians what exactly has been in the plan for a breakdown of all the proposals that the Mr. President has already given to us. They want to bring in food into the country. What will be the landing cost? What will be the intervention? Will it alleviate this issue of food security? People are hungry, and so people will continue to be angry. A hungry man is an angry man. So a quick intervention is required.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Darmal, a whole lot to say.
Thank you.
Former Chairman, Shanga Farms Holdings in Kwara State, and now the Managing Consultant of Delhi Baton Associates Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, there you had Dr. Darmola calling on the Minister of Agriculture. I know, we've been calling on him, and we saw him on our sister program, Politics Today. Honorable Minister, we want to speak to you on Business Morning. Here, this is where we want to direct and dice out those issues about insecurity affecting food, about the price, about the soil, about the harvest loss that we're having in the country. Please come to Business Morning. We are waiting. Minister of Agriculture. All right, I don't think we have enough time to take the market today, but it was a red day yesterday. We'll give you details. Ladi Williams will be here with Anyeti Edet. That's at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We've got, as you've seen, His Excellency Caleb Muftuan, Governor of Plateau State. He joins us virtually. Good morning, Your Excellency. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Hello, I can hear Chamberlain.
Yes, good morning. We can hear you here. Can you hear us now? Okay, we're going to keep trying.
Hello, Chamberlain. I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Okay, so maybe they should just Okay, I think it's.
Yeah.
Is it better now?
I can hear you now. I
All
can
right.
hear you now.
Okay, so thank you for joining us. So could you go ahead and tell us? I mean, you are the Chief Security Officer in the state. You've got intelligence reports concerning the protest. I know there was a curfew. So what is the latest development now in Plateau State about the protests?
Thank you, Chamberlain. The protests began on the 1st of August with the legitimate gathering of the protesters. And it went on smoothly on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And everything was going on peacefully to the admiration of everyone. Because we have always believed that the right to protest, freedom of expression is constitutionally guaranteed, and therefore we did not do anything to impede that right. But by Sunday afternoon, we began to receive intelligence that this legitimate protest had been infiltrated by hoodlums. And then we had to now, by about 10 p.m. on Sunday, it became very clear that we needed to be proactive because intelligence was showing that at the dawn of Monday morning, we're going to see massive acts of criminality. And we therefore felt it was our responsibility to protect lives and property and not allow these hoodlums to take away the focus from the legitimacy of the protest. And so we had to impose curfew on just metropolis, where we felt the biggest threat was coming from. So far, so good. There was a bit of resistance yesterday, Monday, but as at this morning, we're receiving very favorable reports that the situation in the area of trouble is getting calmer, and the curfew is being enforced by the security agencies, and people are respecting the curfew. This is the way a decent society should be.
So can we say that the curfew is for 24 hours, or is it the initial 24 hours, depending on how things pan out?
Well, it depends on how things pan out. There is no fixed rule. This afternoon, we are convening a meeting of community leaders, particularly in the troubled areas, so that we can further use dialogue to ensure that these criminal elements are not allowed to have their way. And so by later tonight, we would be able to review the situation and know where to go from there.
I mean, before the protest, the information that came through from the IGP's office was that they had mobilized their men across the country to be on alert and be sure that they do what they can to stave off any unwanted activity. Did you get any intel before now that these kind of scenarios were going to happen? And if it did, I mean, were there areas or spots that were red zones mapped out?
We certainly had areas of concern, and we were very proactive. That's why I told you we didn't believe that the protest should be frustrated. And we took steps behind the scenes using community leaders, religious leaders, traditional rulers, civil society organizations to sensitize people to stave off the likelihood of this kind of intrusion. And to a great extent, we succeeded. But when it became apparent that there were external forces, I can tell you intelligence shows that some of the merchants of crisis imported these hoodlums from neighboring states because they were not satisfied with the peaceful conduct of the protests on the Plateau. And they felt they needed to disrupt it and create some bit of confusion. But it's because we were able to penetrate the camp of these criminals that we had the intelligence that led us to the action on Sunday evening. So yes, we had, just like the IG said, we also had intelligence in that direction, and we thought we could frustrate them. But when it became clear that it was difficult to frustrate those criminal elements, we had to take a decisive action.
So these elements, these external elements, did they come in before the protest began or after the protest began?
I can't say for sure. It's possible some of them sneaked in before the protest, but the likelihood, more likely sequence would be that as the protest began and they saw that it was peaceful in the first 2 days, they began to come in quietly. And by the third day, it was apparent that their presence was being felt in certain areas of the town. And so we had to act.
So you've been able to identify who these external elements are?
Well, we've made some arrests, and the security agencies are profiling them at the moment. The tailor that was sewing the flag, the foreign flag, we've been able to apprehend him. So we are finding out where did he get the idea from, what is the motive, and who paid for it. These are things we are looking into.
So before the protest began, you said that, I mean, you had meetings through the back channel. Were you able to identify who the quote and unquote genuine leaders of the protest were, or was it just youths, I mean, who were vocal in their locality that you met with?
It was difficult. Yeah, Chamberlain, thank you. It was actually difficult to say who the leaders were, but we knew the potential kind of interest groups that could be easily mobilized, and we reached out to them. Till now, I cannot tell you for sure who the real leaders are, but we know that some prominent personalities have come to the fore, and I'm not sure that those prominent personalities have control over the protesters. It may just be a convergence of interest, but we're still looking into who the real leaders are, and so that we can be able to dialogue with them. You know, we're expanding our intelligence network to know how to be able to identify the key leaders who actually have control over the protesters, so that we can dialogue with them.
Is it that the prominent ones don't have control, or these are preliminary info where you think, well, they may not have control over those people?
I'm not sure that those prominent leaders have control over the protesters. They certainly would have their own followers among the protesters, but not the entire protesting flock. There are certainly several interests that have converged at this point in time. And that is why even when some of the leaders began to sense trouble and began to say, hey, what are these foreign flags doing here? Take them away. Their voices were not heard. They were not respected. And so it tells you that there are many influences on the protests, and we're still trying to decipher them.
Governor Muftwang, just so we can touch on some issues that have been making the rounds recently, the conversation has come to state governors. And I have two questions, but I'm going to start off with this one. When it comes to allocations that have been given to states, reports are that those allocations have increased exponentially by over 25%, at least since last year. And we've been asking, where is that money? Because it is that development at the state level that many people believe has led to the discomfort that many people are facing and has made many genuine protesters come out to protest. Can we hear from you what the allocations are to Plateau State and what the money has been used for so far?
Thank you, Kayla. I can't answer for all the governors, but let me take exception to the use of the term money given to the states. These are constitutional allocations from the Federation account based on the revenue allocation formula. So they are legitimate disbursements to the states. Now, for us on the plateau, I can lift my head high and say that we have given good account of our stewardship thus far, and we have embarked on developmental strides that have brought hope to the people of Plateau State. First of all, a big chunk of the revenues that have come to the state have been used in payment of salaries. We have a wage bill now averaging about 3.5 to 4 billion monthly. And I can't give you the exact figures that have come in, but they have fluctuated. Now, it is true that in terms of figure, in terms of amount, it has actually increased. But in terms of purchasing power, in terms of real value, it has decreased. It has decreased very significantly. It doesn't need any rocket science. When the last administration came in 2015, the dollar was exchanging to about 180 to the Naira. Today, you are telling me that money has increased, but all of us know the value of the dollar to the Naira. And many of things, we are still a consumer nation. Many of the things we are using in governance are imported. And so they are dollar denominated. And I give you a typical example. One of the roads I had to take steps to complete recently, since we came on board, It's a bridge that was awarded way back in 2012 at the cost of about 3.5 billion. Now, because of the refusal of the succeeding government, which I took over from, to complete that project, it had to wait till we came on board. And it's a very important road for the state, a very important bridge that links two parts of the town. We had to now channel in another 7 billion to finish a bridge that had been almost 70% done, because diesel prices have increased, cement has increased, iron rods have increased, and so it's not rocket science. This issue, you shouldn't just look at the amount. Let's look at the purchasing power of the amount that the states have so far received from the Federation account.
Your Excellency, we would also like to get your thoughts on some of the scenes that we're seeing from Plateau State. It's brought to mind the question about human capital development in northern Nigeria, especially for all those young people, whether they are hoodlums from the state or whether they were employed by other states. It's a general problem in northern Nigeria. As governor, what human capital development work are you putting in place so that you don't have a state that has too many hoodlums? So much so that when regular, genuine protesters want to come out, they are told not to do so because they can be hijacked.
Kayla, this is a very sad development for me, as I saw those children out on the streets, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, being used to cause mayhem. It brought a lot of pain to my heart. And I must admit, I'm coming into the leadership space newly, but I must admit that those of us who have been leaders in northern Nigeria have failed in this regard. We have abdicated responsibility, and we are paying the price of that abdication now, leaving these children without education, not regulating, the birth, the training of these children. And so we have a lot of irresponsible people who take over some of these kids. You can imagine in one of the placards I saw, these children were asking that the price of illicit drugs should be crushed. Some of these children have been put on illicit drugs by these wicked leaders, wicked custodians. And so we have a disaster on our hands, and we must come together and address it. If not, it's going to engulf the whole nation. It is from these uneducated children, underfed children, that all the criminal elements, armed robbers, Boko Haram, all of them, they draw from that pool to be able to beef up their ranks. And we are sitting on a time bomb. For us on the plateau, we have a very serious challenge because it's not just about human capital development. You also have to look at some of the religious undertones that have sustained this unfortunate state of affairs. Like I said, we are going to be having series of meetings with our community leaders and religious leaders to put heads together. How do we address these children? I can tell you for free that some of these children were brought in from outside the state. They are certainly not just all from this state. But I cannot deny that some of them were born and bred in this state. And we're going to be holding parents accountable and responsible for the children they give birth to. We're going to put these measures in place. As a government, it is my own ambition to ensure that by the time I leave office, that no child is denied education, sentenced to illiteracy because the parents could not pay their school fees. So we are putting measures in place, and that's why we're trying to invest in economic rejuvenation so that we can improve our revenue base and be able to service the social sector. And God willing, we're going to attack this very frontally, and hopefully we'll be able to reduce these incidents to the barest minimum But we need the collaboration of other states in the northern part of the country. Because while you are making efforts in your state and others are not doing it, it will be counterproductive. And so we need to have a national dialogue on this. It will not even just be left to the northern states, because some of these children are being exported to the southeast, southwest, south, and before you know it, they will become a time bomb that can explode any moment. And we need to address it nationally without just tokenism. We must be honest and sincere that we have a problem on our hands and we need to deal with it.
And finally, from me, Your Excellency, local government autonomy. This is something everyone has been asking for, and finally it has been granted by the Supreme Court. In terms of Plateau State, the security situation there is one where your borders have been criticized for being pretty porous, where criminal elements and bandits are able to move to and from Plateau State, even to other parts of the northern states there. Talk to us a little bit about your role and what you're going to be doing with local government autonomy, especially financially, such that the security situation at local levels are being handled properly by local government chairmen and other people who are at the lowest levels of government.
Yeah, thank you, Kayla. Let me say this upfront. Apart from what you may call the infraction of dissolving elected councils, we in Plateau State, even with the PIC chairman, we have been practicing local government autonomy. I think when we get to the details, as governors, we will tell you what is happening at the local government level. I think some of the commentaries I've had about local government operations betrays a lot of ignorance on people who do not know what really happens at that system, at that level of government. I have been a local government chairman personally, and I know how it operates. And the bottom line is that we must bring governance closer to the people. How do we do it? What are the mechanisms we put in place? These are dialogues that we need to have in order to ensure that this idea of autonomy becomes a reality. But let me say this again. Plateau State does not harbor bandits in the real sense of it. They are brought in from outside the state. We have identified many entry points for these bandits. Some of them come from the northeast. Some of them are brought in from the northwest. Some of them are resident here within part of the north central. And from there, they are able to attack Plateau State. Now, I can tell you that where we are today is far better than the situation we met on ground when we came in last year. But beyond that, we are investing massively in technology to be able to have real-time information on the movement of these bandits. We have identified their areas of concentration, and we are pushing them back significantly. We've made some significant arrests in recent times, and we are not resting on our oars. We are also making sure that we sensitize the community on intelligence gathering. Without intelligence, there's nothing the security agencies can do. And so it is not true that Plateau State is the one, that the bandits are coming from Plateau State to other states. The reverse is the case. The bandits are coming from other areas into Plateau State. And therefore, we have enjoyed the collaboration of the security agents very significantly. And we're working together tirelessly in order to push back these bandits. Because for us, we have seen that the real enemy we should be fighting is poverty. Now, the only way to fight poverty for us is one of the key tools to fighting poverty is agriculture. Unfortunately, this banditry has not allowed us to develop our agriculture to its fullest potential. And so we have taken on this very seriously. We must reclaim our lands and put them to productive use so that we can be able to ensure food security and be able to build the economy of our dream. And so we are doing a lot. When it comes to security measures, You can't say all in public, but I can guarantee you that Plateau State people are conscious of what we are doing and they're happy with what we are doing.
Your Excellency, you have spoken about people taking responsibility for the children they bring into this world. Many had considered that a touchy area to talk about up north, and since you have identified it as a huge concern, is this something that you are willing to at least have a broader conversation across perhaps up north, saying, look, this is a huge concern. People cannot keep giving birth, quote and unquote, maybe more than they can handle. Would you be putting any figure, any number to any particular family?
No, Chamberlain, certainly we don't have an option. At this point in time, we must take the bull by the horn. We must know that this is, I am pretty sure that a lot of northern elite do not have their children on the streets. They've sent their children to elite schools locally and internationally. Now, if that is the situation, it's not so much, first of all, about how many children you give birth to, but that we must be able to put in measures in place that if you give birth to children, you must take responsibility for those children. I think it must be a carrot and stick strategy that we put in place. I don't want to say this is the maximum number of children you must have. That is a dialogue that is beyond me, but I can assure you that from the Forum of Northern Governors, we are going to initiate this dialogue, and we are going to make sure that we broaden it to a national conversation. We must know that religion has a responsibility to society and ensure that religion does not become a setback for society. We must then be able to bring our religious leaders in tandem with global realities. We have religious beliefs in different parts of the world. How is that impacting on social issues? We should be able to have that conversation and know that we live in a global space, that we cannot be an island to ourselves. So this is a conversation we must have, both locally and nationally.
Your Excellency, we do thank you very much indeed for your time here today. We wish you all the best. We'll be keeping tabs and hope that any violence just subsides completely. Thank you, and all the best to you and the team.
Thank you, Chamberlain and Kayla. By God's grace, the situation is under control. We are just monitoring it to make sure that we do not open the floodgates too early, so that we have a reversal of the gains that we have made. But thank you for your concern. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at some messages that came through from you. This is from Professor Imohena. He says, multi-dimensional poverty in Nigeria is higher in rural areas where 72% of people are poor compared to 42% of people in urban areas. Child poverty is prevalent in rural areas with almost 90% of rural children experiencing poverty.
Nusoda Wanapia says vandalism is criminal and unacceptable. But where they have seen such mammoth without chaos, especially for hungry, irate, unschooled, and genuinely pressed and troubled people, the energy and security needs of this country need to be addressed. This protest should not be taken lightly.
Well, Atinuke and Khalil, thank you for your messages as well, and everybody else. We do appreciate all of that. Please do keep them coming. But that is the show today. Well, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Goodbye.
In everything that you do, stay safe. Do not vandalize. I'm Kayla Megwa. Have a great day.